The fluorescent lights of Mercy General Hospital buzzed with that particular frequency that lives somewhere between a headache and white noise. Margaret Thorne had stopped noticing it about 20 years ago. At 54, she moved through the night shift corridors like a ghost. Gray hair pulled back in a regulation bun, scrubs that had seen 1,000 washes, hands that never trembled, not even when everything else did. The young doctors didn't see her anymore. To them, she was furniture, a relic from an era before electronic medical records and AI diagnostics. She stocked supplies. She counted inventory. She existed in the margins of their gleaming modern hospital. They had no idea what those hands had done. It was 2:47 in the morning when the doors to the emergency bay exploded inward. The gurney came through, fast wheels screaming against linoleum. Two paramedics were running alongside it, one doing chest compressions, the other bagging oxygen with mechanical precision. Behind them, two MPs in full dress uniform followed at a careful distance. Margaret looked up from her supply cart. The patient was young, 19, maybe 20, short military haircut growing out awkwardly. The kind of tan you only get from desert sun. His shirt had been cut away, revealing a chest covered in blood and 4 distinct entry wounds. Gunshot wounds, high caliber, professional grouping. Dr. Brandon Sullivan exploded into the trauma bay like a man who had just realized he was drowning. 32 years old, Harvard Medical School, 2 years of residency. He had probably saved a dozen lives in his career. This was not going to be number 13. "Talk to me," Sullivan shouted, his voice already climbing toward panic. "What do we have?" "Private Tyler Bishop," the lead paramedic called out, not breaking rhythm on the compressions. 19 years old, 4 GSWs to the chest and abdomen, blood pressure 70/40 and dropping, heart rate 160, lost approximately 2 liters in transport. Sullivan's face went pale under the surgical lights. Jesus Christ, okay, someone get me a central line kit and page the attending. Page Dr. Winters right now. A resident appeared at his elbow, fresh out of medical school. Name tag read Richardson. "Dr. Winters is in surgery, won't be available for at least an hour." "An hour," Sullivan's voice cracked. "This kid doesn't have an hour. He doesn't have 20 minutes. The monitors were screaming, a symphony of alarms that meant the same thing in every language. Ding, ding, ding. Sullivan grabbed for the intubation kit, his hands shaking so badly he nearly dropped the laryngoscope. "Someone hold his head. I need to get a tube in." He tried, twice. The tube went into the esophagus both times. "God damn it, I can't see the cords. There's too much blood." Margaret stood in the corner, her hand resting on a box of 4x4 gauze pads. She watched. She calculated. She remembered. This was every desert, every war. Every time someone's son bled out because the people around him forgot what urgency actually meant. Sullivan pulled back from the failed intubation, breathing hard. "Where's the blood? Someone tell me we have O negative on the way." "Blood bank says 10 minutes, a nurse called out. 10 minutes, are they serious?" The flatline hit like a gunshot in church. One long, endless tone. Tyler Bishop's heart had stopped. Sullivan froze. Actually froze. Like someone had pressed pause on his entire nervous system. "Oh God," he whispered. "Oh God, oh God." The resident jumped in starting compressions, but his rhythm was all wrong. Too fast, too shallow, bouncing the patient instead of actually perfusing the heart. Margaret set down the gauze. She crossed the trauma bay in 5 strides. Not running, not rushing, just inevitable. "Step aside, doctor." Her voice cut through the chaos like a blade through silk. Not loud, not angry, just absolute. Sullivan looked up confused, like he'd forgotten other people existed in the world. Who are, "Step aside, doctor." Sullivan's mouth opened. Some protest was forming. Some appeal to hierarchy and protocol and the rules that govern their sterile litigation-afraid world. Margaret didn't wait for it. She put a hand on his chest and moved him. Physically. The way you move furniture. The room went silent. Even the alarms seemed to quiet, like they were waiting to see what happened next. Margaret took position at the head of the gurney. She looked down at Tyler Bishop's gray face, at the blue tinge forming around his lips, at the chest that wasn't rising. She'd seen this before, more times than anyone in this room could imagine. "You." She pointed at Richardson, the resident. "Take over compressions. Real compressions. 2 inches deep, 100 per minute, like you're trying to crack ribs because you are." Richardson moved like he'd been electrocuted. Margaret's hands found the intubation equipment. Her fingers moved with the kind of precision that only comes from doing something 1,000 times in conditions far worse than this. Suction. Someone handed it to her. She cleared the airway, Found the vocal cords on the first try, slid the tube home like she was threading a needle. Bag him, 15 breaths per minute. A nurse moved in, taking the ambu bag, squeezing with perfect rhythm. Margaret's eyes went to the monitor. Flatline still, but she could work with flatline. Flatline was just a problem to solve. She put her hands on Tyler's chest, measuring the space between ribs, feeling for the landmarks she'd memorized in 1990. I need a 14-gauge angiocath, second intercostal space kit, and everyone in this room needs to be quiet for 10 seconds. Sullivan found his voice again. What are you doing? You can't just... I said quiet. The authority in her voice belonged to a different place. A place where hesitation meant death, where rules were written in sand and washed away with blood. She placed her fingers on Tyler's chest, felt the ribs, counted down from the clavicle. Second rib, mid-clavicular line. She'd done this in the dark. She'd done this while mortars fell. She'd done this with her own blood running down her arms. This was easy. He's got a tension pneumothorax on the right side, she said, her voice clinical, detached. His lung has collapsed and the pressure is crushing his heart. If I don't decompress it in the next 30 seconds, his heart will stop permanently, and all of you can fill out incident reports for the next month. She took the angiocath from the surgical tray. 14 gauge, long enough to reach the pleural space. No one was breathing. The entire trauma bay had become a held breath. Margaret found the spot. She didn't hesitate, didn't double check, just drove the needle home with the confidence of someone who had never not once missed. The sound was immediate, a hiss, like opening a pressurized can, air escaping under force. Tyler's chest expanded, actually expanded. The flatline flickered, once, twice. Then it became a rhythm, beep, 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 a sinus rhythm, thready, weak. But there, Sullivan made a sound, something between a laugh and a sob. Margaret stepped back. She stripped off the gloves she'd pulled from someone's pocket, dropped them in the medical waste bin. His pressure's coming up, a nurse called out, voice shaking with relief. 90 over 50, oxygen saturation climbing, 82, 85, and 88. Tyler Bishop took a breath on his own, a real breath, the first one in 3 minutes that had actually reached his lungs. Margaret turned and walked back to her supply cart. The entire room stared at her. Sullivan, Richardson, the nurses, the paramedics, even the MPs at the door. She picked up her clipboard and continued counting gauze pads like nothing had happened. Sullivan finally found his voice. Who are you? Margaret didn't look up from her inventory sheet. Night shift supply management, doctor. You should stabilize your patient. He's not out of danger yet. But you performed a needle decompression. You intubated him. Your patient is breathing, Dr. Sullivan. I suggest you take advantage of that and get him to the ICU. Sullivan took a step toward her, his face a mixture of awe and confusion. Where did you learn to do that? Margaret's pen paused on the inventory sheet, just for a moment, just long enough for someone watching carefully to notice. Her mind flashed briefly to sand and fire, to hands covered in blood, to a young ranger looking up at her and asking if he was going to die. A long time ago, doctor, in a place very far from here. She finished her count, marked the clipboard, pushed her cart toward the supply room. Behind her, Tyler Bishop's monitors beeped steadily. Alive, breathing, present. On the gurney, his eyes flickered open. Just for a second, he turned his head, looking for something. His gaze found Margaret's retreating back. His lips moved. The words were barely a whisper. Only the closest nurse heard them. Ranger qualified. I can see it. Thank you, ma'am. Then his eyes closed again, and the sedatives pulled him under. The nurse frowned. She looked at Margaret's back, at the gray-haired woman pushing a supply cart, at someone who should have been invisible. Something didn't add up, but Margaret was already gone, disappearing into the fluorescent maze of the hospital corridors. The night shift continued. The trauma bay was cleaned, the blood was mopped up, the paperwork was filed, and in the corner of the break room, a young nurse named Emily Patterson pulled out her phone and typed a single search query, Ranger qualified female medic, 1990s. The results would change everything. The sun rose over Chicago at 6:15, painting the city in shades of copper and gold. Margaret stood in the parking garage looking at her car, a 2004 Honda Accord with 200,000 miles and a passenger door that only opened from the inside. She hadn't slept, but then she rarely slept anymore. Her phone buzzed, a text from Nathan, her son. He was 7,000 miles away doing things he couldn't talk about in places he couldn't name. Morning, Ma. Stay safe. She smiled. Type back, you too, baby. Love you. The phone buzzed again. Not Nathan this time. A number she didn't recognize. Ms. Thorne, office. Now, Whitmore. Margaret's jaw tightened. She pocketed the phone and headed back inside. Marcus Whitmore's office was everything a modern hospital administrator's office should be. Glass walls, minimalist furniture, a desk with nothing on it except a laptop and a phone. No photos, no personal touches, just efficiency and corporate sterility. Whitmore himself was 35, though he dressed like he was trying to be 50. Expensive suit, designer glasses he didn't need, hair gelled within an inch of its life. He looked up when Margaret entered, didn't ask her to sit. Margaret. Mr. Whitmore. Last night, the trauma bay, Private Tyler Bishop. Margaret said nothing, just stood with her hands clasped in front of her military rest position. Whitmore's jaw worked like he was chewing something bitter. Sullivan filed a report. He says you intervened, that you performed medical procedures beyond your scope of practice. Private Bishop was dying. I stabilized him. You performed a needle decompression. You intubated him. You took over a code blue from a licensed physician. I saved his life. That's not your job, Margaret. She looked at him then, really looked at him. And for just a second, Whitmore felt something cold crawl up his spine. Then what is my job, Mr. Whitmore? Supply management, basic patient care, following protocol, the things you were hired to do. I was hired as a registered nurse with 32 years of experience. You're part-time night staff. You stock shelves. You don't perform advanced procedures. Margaret's expression didn't change, but something in the room shifted. How did you know Private Bishop was military? Whitmore asked suddenly. That information isn't in his chart. It's classified. Margaret said nothing. Whitmore leaned back in his chair, trying to look casual, failing. You're 54 years old, Margaret. You've been working here for, 8 years part-time. Night shift, never caused problems, never asked for promotions, just showed up, did your job, went home. Is there a question in there, Mr. Whitmore? The question is why a woman with your apparent skills is working part-time nights, stocking supplies. I needed the work. You needed night staff. It seemed mutually beneficial. Whitmore's phone buzzed. He glanced at it. His face tightened. I'm going to be direct, Margaret. What you did last night was impressive. It was also illegal. You practiced medicine without authority. You superseded a physician's decisions. You put this hospital at significant legal risk. Tyler Bishop is alive. That's not the point. Then what is the point? Whitmore stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the city like he was seeing something she couldn't. This hospital is changing, Margaret. We're modernizing, streamlining. We need younger staff, people who understand technology, people who fit our demographic profile, people who don't ask questions. Whitmore turned. His eyes were hard. I'm suspending you 2 weeks, unpaid. When you come back, if you come back, you'll be on probation. Any more incidents like last night and you're done, permanently. Margaret nodded once. Is that all? That's all. She turned to leave. Margaret. She stopped, didn't turn around. Whoever you used to be, Whitmore said quietly. Whatever you used to do, it doesn't matter here. This is a civilian hospital. We have rules, chain of command. If you can't accept that, you should leave now. Margaret's hand rested on the door handle. I understand, Mr. Whitmore. She left. Whitmore watched her go. Then he picked up his phone and made a call. It's done, he said. She's suspended. 2 weeks. The voice on the other end was distorted, mechanical. Good. Keep her isolated. We'll handle the rest. What about the patient, Bishop? He's being transferred to a secure facility. By the time she realizes what's happening, it'll be too late. And if she tries to interfere? She won't. She's just a nurse. What's she going to do? The line went dead. Whitmore looked at his phone for a long moment. Then he opened his banking app. A new deposit. $50,000. Wire transfer. Sender Aegis Defense Solutions. He closed the app and went back to his email. Margaret walked through the hospital corridors one last time. Past the nurses' station where Emily Patterson watched her with worried eyes. Past the break room where residents whispered behind their hands. Past the trauma bay where Tyler Bishop had almost died 6 hours ago. She reached her locker in the staff changing room, opened it with a combination she'd memorized 8 years ago. Inside, a photo of David, her husband, dead 3 years from cancer that ate him from the inside out. He was smiling in the photo, wearing his dress uniform, Ranger tab on his shoulder. They'd been married 26 years. Next to it, Nathan, her son, 28 years old. Marine Corps, second deployment. She hadn't seen him in person in 14 months. Below that, her stethoscope, the one her father had given her in 1990 when she graduated from combat medic training. Litman Cardiology III, worn, CEDAS, perfect. And at the bottom, a small wooden box. She opened it. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper, 3 medals: Bronze Star, Purple Heart, Army Commendation Medal. She'd earned them in places that didn't officially exist, doing things civilians couldn't imagine and military families didn't talk about. Margaret closed the box, put it in her bag along with the photos and the stethoscope. She stripped off her hospital ID badge. Margaret Thorne, RN, 8 years of service to Mercy General Hospital. She set it on the bench and walked out. The rain started at 3 in the afternoon, the kind of Chicago rain that feels personal, cold, relentless, the kind that gets into your bones and doesn't leave. Margaret sat in her apartment staring at her phone. The apartment was small, clean, military neat, everything in its place. No clutter, no excess. On the mantle, photos: her wedding, Nathan's graduation from boot camp, David's funeral, a group photo from 1991, 12 people in desert camouflage standing in front of a shot-up Humvee. Half of them were dead now. Her phone sat on the coffee table, was silent. She thought about calling Nathan, but what would she say? That she'd been suspended, that 32 years of medical experience meant nothing next to a Harvard degree and corporate efficiency metrics, that she was tired. The phone rang. Unknown number. Margaret stared at it, let it ring twice, 3 times. 6 times. On the 4th ring, she picked up. Thorne? The voice on the other end was male. Older, military cadence. Specialist Margaret Thorne, serial number 03762984, 75th Ranger Regiment attached. Operation Desert Storm. Is this correct? Margaret sat up straight. Muscle memory. Who is this? Colonel William Brooks, Joint Special Operations Command. I need to speak with you about Private Tyler Bishop. I don't know any. You saved his life 6 hours ago at Mercy General Hospital. Against protocol, against orders. You performed a needle decompression that prevented catastrophic cardiac arrest. Margaret said nothing. I'm Tyler's father, Miss Thorne. The silence stretched. Your son is going to be fine, Colonel. He's stable. The attending will. My son was poisoned, Ms. Thorne. Someone added succinylcholine to his IV drip 2 hours ago. If the nurse hadn't caught it during a routine check, he'd be dead right now. Margaret's hand tightened on the phone. Someone tried to kill him. In the ICU, in a guarded room, and they almost succeeded. Why are you telling me this? Because before Tyler lost consciousness last night, he slipped something into your pocket. A micro SD card. We need it, and we need you. Margaret reached for her scrub top. Still in her bag, she checked the interior pocket. Her fingers found something small, hard, wrapped in surgical tape. She pulled it out. A micro SD card, no bigger than a fingernail. What is this? $8.7 billion in defense contractor fraud. Documents, wire transfers, communications. Everything we need to bring down the largest corruption network in U.S. military history. Margaret stared at the tiny piece of plastic. Tyler was working undercover, investigating procurement fraud for my office. He found proof that Aegis Defense Corporation has been billing ghost projects for 12 years, stealing from taxpayers, from soldiers, from families. Why give it to me? Because someone inside the hospital is working for Aegis. We don't know who, we don't know how deep it goes. But Tyler was briefed on Operation Gold Star, the Desert Storm rescue mission, your mission. He knew who you were the moment he saw you. Margaret closed her eyes. Operation Gold Star, a name she hadn't heard in 35 years. He trusted you, Ms. Thorne, the way 11 Rangers trusted you in 91. And now I'm asking you to trust me. What do you want? I have a team coming to extract you. They'll be there in 10 minutes. Pack light, bring the card. We're moving Tyler to a secure location, and we need someone we can trust to keep him alive. Colonel, I'm a suspended nurse. I haven't been in the field since you held 11 men alive for 8 hours under enemy fire while waiting for medevac. Since you performed 4 field surgeries without anesthesia. Since you earned the nickname White Angel and became a legend that we still teach at Fort Sam Houston. Margaret's breath caught. I'm not asking you to be a soldier again, Miss Thorne. I'm asking you to be what you've always been. A medic. Someone who doesn't quit. Someone who doesn't leave people behind. Who's the team? Someone you know. Someone who's been looking for you for 20 years. The line went dead. Margaret sat in her apartment holding a piece of plastic worth $8.7 billion. Outside, the rain hammered down. She looked at the photos on the mantel. David in his uniform, Nathan in his, the group photo from 1991. She thought about Tyler Bishop, 19 years old, someone's son, someone's brother, lying in a hospital bed with a target on his back. She thought about Whitmore's office, the suspension, the humiliation, the casual dismissal of 3 decades of saving lives. She stood up, went to her bedroom, pulled a bag from under the bed. Olive drab, military issue. It still had her name stenciled on the side in faded black letters. She began to pack. The SUVs arrived at 9:47. 3 of them, black, unmarked, moving with the kind of coordination that screamed military. Margaret stood at her window watching them deploy. 6 men, full tactical gear, moving with practiced efficiency. She recognized the walk before she recognized the face. The lead man removed his sunglasses, looked up at her window. Even from 4 stories up, she could see his eyes. Blue, hard, scarred. Jackson Wade. Margaret grabbed her bag and headed for the door. She took the stairs. 4 flights. Her knees complained, but she ignored them. Knees always complained. That's what knees did when you were 54 and had spent too many years carrying too much weight across too many miles of bad terrain. She hit the lobby. The building manager looked up from his desk, saw the men in tactical gear, and wisely decided to be very interested in his computer screen. Margaret pushed through the front doors. The rain hit her like a wall, cold, Chicago, April. Wade stood on the sidewalk, water running off his gear like he was made of stone. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. 35 years. 35 years since a tent in Saudi Arabia. Since a 21-year-old ranger with a severed carotid artery had looked up at her and said, "Am I going to die?" And she'd said, "Not if I have anything to say about it." Wade smiled. It was tired. It was real. "Hello, Doc." Margaret felt something in her chest crack. Just a little. "Wade? Been looking for you for 20 years. You're harder to find than enemy combatants." "I wasn't hiding." "Weren't you?" A valid question. Wade gestured to the SUVs. "We need to move. Aegis has assets in the city. Once they realize Bishop gave you the drive, they'll come hard." "How do you know they don't already know?" "Because you're still breathing." Margaret looked at the other 5 men. Young, fit, dangerous. They looked at her with something like awe. Wade saw her expression. "They know who you are. They know what you did. In my community, you're a ghost story. The medic who defied death. The white angel." Margaret's jaw tightened. "I'm just a nurse, Wade." "Doc, you were never just anything." He opened the door to the middle SUV. "Please, Tyler needs you, and I need you to trust me one more time." Margaret looked at her apartment building, at the life she'd built. Small, quiet, safe. Then she looked at Wade, at the scars on his face, at the gray in his hair, at the evidence that they'd both survived things they shouldn't have. She got in the SUV. Wade climbed in beside her, slammed the door. The convoy moved, and Margaret Thorne, who had been invisible for 8 years, disappeared into the rain-soaked streets of Chicago. Behind them in a nondescript sedan, a man with a phone took a photo of the license plate and sent it to a number with no name. In an office downtown, Marcus Whitmore's phone buzzed. He looked at the message. His face went pale. He typed back, "She's gone. What do I do?" The response was immediate. "Nothing. You've been paid. Forget you ever knew her. We'll handle the rest." Whitmore deleted the messages, closed his phone, looked out his office window at the rain. He wondered briefly what he'd just done. Then he went back to his email and forgot about the gray-haired woman who'd worked nights for 8 years. Some people are easy to forget, until they're not. The safe house was an abandoned VA hospital wing on the south side of Chicago. 3 stories of forgotten promises and budget cuts. The kind of place where wounded soldiers went to wait for care that never came. Margaret sat in the back of the SUV as it descended into an underground parking garage. The concrete walls were tagged with graffiti. The fluorescent lights flickered like dying stars. Wade spoke into his comms unit, voice low and clipped. "Bravo 1 entering the nest. Package secure. Sweep the perimeter and lock it down." The other SUVs peeled off, taking positions at the garage entrances. Men deployed with practiced efficiency. Weapons up, eyes scanning. This wasn't a training exercise. Margaret watched them move, recognized the choreography. She'd seen it before in places where hesitation meant death. Wade turned to Kid. Tyler's on the third floor. We've got him in what used to be a private recovery room. Two MPs at the door. Medical equipment is basic but functional. How bad is he? Stable for now. But the poison did damage. His liver enzymes are elevated. Kidney function is declining. He needs proper care. Then take him to a real hospital. We can't. Aegis owns half the medical facilities in this city. The moment Tyler shows up in any database, they'll know. And they'll finish what they started. The SUV stopped. Wade opened the door. Come on, Doc. Let's see if you remember how to work without the luxury of civilization. Margaret grabbed her bag and followed him into the building. The stairwell smelled like mold and old regret. Their footsteps echoed in the emptiness. Somewhere above, water dripped with metronomic persistence. Who else is on the team? Margaret asked. 5 good men. Lieutenant Bryce Harding, tactical officer. Sergeant Connor Mitchell, communications. Corporal Luke Brennan, he's got field medic training. Specialist Grant Walsh, demolitions. Petty Officer Ryan Foster, sniper. And you're running the show. Something like that. They reached the third floor. The door was steel reinforced. A biometric scanner had been jury-rigged next to it. Wade pressed his thumb to the pad, and the lock clicked. The hallway beyond was lit by battery-powered work lights. The floor had been swept. The walls, though water-stained and peeling, showed signs of recent fortification. 2 MPs stood outside a door at the end of the hall. They snapped to attention when they saw Wade. Sir, Wade nodded. She's cleared. Open it. They did. The room was small. A single hospital bed, an IV stand, portable monitors hooked to a car battery, medical supplies stacked in plastic bins. Tyler Bishop lay on the bed, eyes closed. He looked even younger than he had in the trauma bay. The kind of young that made Margaret think of Nathan. The kind of young that shouldn't have to know what a bullet feels like. His chest rose and fell with mechanical regularity. Good. The intubation was holding. Margaret set her bag down and approached the bed. Her hands moved automatically, checking pupils' pulse, capillary refill. 32 years of muscle memory taking over. His vitals are stable, she said. But Wade, he needs a CT scan. Blood work, real diagnostics. I can't assess internal damage with a stethoscope and prayer. Do what you can, Doc. It's more than anyone else could do. Margaret looked at the monitors, at the improvised medical setup, at the desperation masquerading as preparation. Tell me everything. Start with the poison. Wade pulled up a folding chair, sat. For the first time since she'd seen him, he looked tired. Succinylcholine. It's a paralytic used in anesthesia. Causes complete muscle paralysis, including the diaphragm. Patient stops breathing. Heart stops. Looks like natural cardiac arrest. Metabolizes quickly. Almost impossible to detect post-mortem. How did they get access to his IV? We're still working on that. Hospital security footage shows an orderly entering Tyler's room at 0300. Male. Scrubs. Face partially obscured by a surgical mask. He was in the room for 90 seconds. And nobody stopped him. It's a hospital, Doc. People in scrubs are invisible. Margaret knew that truth intimately. The nurse caught it during a routine check. Wade continued. She noticed the IV bag had been changed, but there was no notation in the chart. Got suspicious. Called it in. By the time security arrived, Tyler was already showing signs of respiratory distress. They intubated him. Saved his life. Where's that nurse now? Wade's expression darkened. Dead. Car accident this morning. Drove off the Eisenhower Expressway. No witnesses. Margaret's hands stilled on Tyler's wrist. Aegis. We think so. They're cleaning up, removing witnesses. Tyler was the primary target, but anyone who might have seen something is secondary. How many people have died? 4 that we know of. The nurse, a hospital security guard who reviewed the footage, a janitor who was working that floor, and a lab technician who processed Tyler's blood work. Jesus Christ. They're not playing Doc. This isn't about money anymore. It's about survival. If Tyler testifies, 40 people go to prison. Senators, generals, CEOs. They'll burn the whole city down before they let that happen. Margaret looked down at Tyler, 19 years old. Someone had tried to kill him twice in 12 hours. What was he investigating? Wade stood, walked to the window. It was boarded up, but through the cracks, Chicago's skyline glittered in the distance. Aegis Defense Corporation. After the Twin Towers fell, they became one of the biggest military contractors. Base security, supply chain, equipment procurement, billions in government contracts flowing through their accounts. He turned back to Margaret. About 12 years ago, someone figured out nobody was checking receipts. Bill for 1,000 Humvees, deliver 800. Pocket the difference. Tyler spent 18 months undercover documenting it all. 8.7 billion in fraudulent billing. Ghost projects. Phantom shipments. The money went offshore. Campaign contributions. They bought senators, Pentagon officials, even people in JSOC. Margaret felt something cold settle in her stomach. That's why we're here instead of a secure facility. We don't know who to trust. Margaret processed this. The implications were staggering. The SD card Tyler gave me. That's the evidence. Copies of everything, wire transfers, emails, recorded phone calls. And Aegis knows you have it. Margaret's head snapped up. What? Wade pulled out a tablet, tapped the screen, pulled up hospital security footage. This is from Mercy General 2 hours ago. The video showed Marcus Whitmore in his office. On the phone, his face was pale, agitated. The audio was tinny but clear. She's gone. What do I do? A pause. Nothing. You've been paid. Forget you ever knew her. We'll handle the rest. Whitmore hung up, stared at his desk. Then he opened his laptop and deleted his browser history with shaking hands. Margaret felt rage, hot and sharp, cutting through the exhaustion. He sold me out. Aegis transferred $50,000 to Whitmore's account yesterday, right after he suspended you. The plan was simple. Suspend you, discredit you, grab you for interrogation. Find the drive, kill you, kill Tyler. Problem solved. Then why am I still alive? Because I got to you first. And because Aegis doesn't know where you are. Yet. Tyler stirred on the bed. His eyelids fluttered. A soft moan escaped his lips. Margaret moved immediately, checking his pupils, his pulse. He's waking up. That's good. Means the sedation is wearing off. Tyler's eyes opened, unfocused at first. Then they found Margaret's face. You, he whispered. His voice was raw from the intubation tube. You're really here. Easy, son. Don't try to talk. They tried to kill me. I know. Did you find it, the drive? I have it. Tyler's hand shot out, grabbing her wrist with surprising strength. Don't give it to anyone. Not the FBI, not the CIA. Aegis has people everywhere. Only my dad, Colonel Brooks, only him. Tyler, I need you to calm down. You don't understand. They killed Jenkins. They killed Ramirez. They killed everyone who knew. I'm the last one. His heart rate was climbing. The monitor beeped faster. Margaret put a hand on his chest. Tyler, look at me. Look at me. He did. You're not alone. You understand, you're not alone. I'm here. Colonel Wade is here. We've got 6 operators guarding this building. Nobody's getting to you. You don't know them. They're everywhere. They own senators. They own generals. I don't care who they own. They don't own me. Tyler searched her face, looking for something, certainty, strength, the thing that had kept her alive when 11 Rangers should have died. Whatever he saw, it was enough. He relaxed, marginally. You're the White Angel, he said. My dad told me about you, said you were a legend. I'm just a nurse. You saved my life. Twice. Not done yet. Need to save it a few more times before we're even. Tyler almost smiled. Then his face crumpled. My mom, does she know? Margaret looked at Wade. Wade shook his head. She thinks you're on a training exercise. We haven't told her. Good, don't. She worries enough. We'll get you home, son, Wade said. But right now, we need to keep you breathing and keep the evidence safe. Tyler's eyes closed again. The exhaustion was overwhelming. Tell my dad I'm sorry. I should have been more careful. You did good, Tyler, Margaret said. You did everything right. He was asleep again in seconds. Margaret straightened. Her back ached. She was 54 years old and she'd been awake for 30 hours. Wade was watching her. What? She asked. Nothing. Just remembering. You looked exactly like that in 91. Same expression, same focus. I was younger in 91, had a lot more hair and a lot less cynicism. You also saved my life. Margaret met his eyes. You were dying, Wade. Your carotid was severed. You had maybe 5 minutes before you bled out. I remember looking up at you, this young woman with blood all over her hands and this absolutely insane determination in her eyes. And I remember thinking, if anyone can save me, it's her. You gave me too much credit. Doc, you held 11 of us alive for 8 hours while mortars fell around that tent. You performed surgery with a flashlight and a prayer. You used yourself as a human shield when the enemy breached the perimeter. Margaret turned away. She didn't want to have this conversation. Not now, not ever. We should talk about security. If Aegis knows I have the drive, they'll come. Already on it. Brennan's setting up motion sensors. Foster's got Overwatch on the roof. Mitchell's monitoring police scanners and Aegis communications. They have communications. Private security frequency. We've been intercepting for 2 days. What are they saying? Wade's expression hardened. They're looking for you, active manhunt. They've got descriptions, vehicle information, and associates. They're checking hospitals, clinics, any place a nurse might go. How long before they find this place? Honestly, I'm surprised they haven't already. As if summoning demons. Mitchell's voice crackled over the comms. Bravo 1, we've got movement. 3 vehicles approaching from the north. Black sedans. No plates. Wade was moving before the transmission ended. Lock it down. Nobody fires unless I give the order. Foster, you got eyes. Affirmative, 3 vehicles. 4 occupants each, 12 total. They're armed. Looks like HK Force Sins. Margaret felt her pulse quicken. Wade. I know. Doc, stay with Tyler. Brennan, you're with her. Everyone else, defensive positions. Do not engage unless engaged first. Corporal Luke Brennan appeared in the doorway. Young, maybe 29. He had kind eyes and the build of someone who spent a lot of time in the gym. Ma'am, we should move away from the window. Margaret looked at Tyler, at the monitors, at the IV lines running into his arms. He can't be moved. Then we stay here. Brennan took position by the door, drew his sidearm, checked the magazine. Margaret's hands found the medical supplies. Her mind raced through scenarios. Gunshot wounds, blast injuries, hemorrhage, shock. She'd done this before. Intense, in vehicles, in places where death was a constant companion. She could do it again. The building was silent, that terrible waiting silence before violence. Then the first shot cracked through the night. Glass shattered somewhere below, shouting. More shots. The distinctive pop, pop, pop of suppressed weapons. Tyler jerked awake. What's happening? Stay down, Margaret ordered. She grabbed the IV stand, moved it closer to the wall away from the door. Are they here? Yes. How many of 12? Tyler tried to sit up, failed, his face twisted with frustration. I can't just lie here. Give me a weapon. You can barely move. You're staying in that bed. Doc, I'm a soldier, and I'm your medic, which means you follow my orders. The gunfire intensified. Close now. 2nd floor. Maybe stairs. Brennan's grip tightened on his weapon. Ma'am, if they breach this room, you need to get behind me. I need to protect my patient. Ma'am, I've been shot at before, Corporal. I know how to handle myself. Brennan looked at her, really looked at her, saw something in her eyes that made him nod. Yes, ma'am. The door to the stairwell exploded open. Footsteps, running, multiple hostiles. Wade's voice over comms tight with controlled aggression. Contact 2nd floor, engaging. The sound of automatic weapons fire, loud, brutal, close. Margaret moved to the medical supply bins, pulled out gauze, tourniquets, hemostatic agents, started arranging them on the bedside table. Tyler watched her. You've done this before. More times than I'd like. The firefight raged below them. Grenades, flashbangs, someone screaming, then silence. Horrible, suffocating silence. Wade's voice breathless but alive. Bravo 1 to all units, status report. Bravo 2 clear, 2 hostiles down. Bravo 3 clear, 1 hostile down, 1 wounded. Bravo 4 clear, taking fire from the east stairwell. Bravo 5 clear, I've got eyes on 3 more entering through the garage. Wade cursed. They're coming in waves. Foster, can you thin them out? Negative, too much cover. Wait, I've got movement on the roof, multiple hostiles. They're setting up breach charges. Margaret's blood ran cold. Wade, she said into Brennan's comms unit. They're coming from above. Copy that, Doc. Brennan, get her and Tyler out of that room. Now. Brennan moved immediately. Ma'am, we need to go see him. He's intubated. He's on IV fluids. I need time to prepare him for transport. We don't have time. Above them, the sound of boots on the roof, heavy, purposeful. Margaret made a decision. She grabbed the IV bags, disconnected them, capped the lines, pulled the intubation tube. Tyler gagged but didn't resist. Can you breathe? She asked. He nodded, gasping. Can you walk? I think so. Then we're walking. She and Brennan got Tyler upright. He swayed pale and weak, but he stayed on his feet. Where are we going? Tyler asked. Away from here. The ceiling above them creaked. Someone was setting charges. Brennan moved them into the hallway. The work lights cast everything in harsh shadows. East stairwell, Brennan said. It's our best shot. They moved. Tyler between them, one arm over Margaret's shoulder, the other over Brennan's. Behind them, the ceiling exploded. The blast was deafening. Margaret felt the shockwave in her chest. Debris rained down. Dust choked the air. Through the smoke, figures dropped from the ceiling. 4 men, black tactical gear, night vision goggles. Brennan fired. 3 shots. 1 man dropped. Return fire. Brennan grunted, stumbled, hit in the shoulder. Go, he gasped. Get him out. I'm not leaving you. Ma'am, I'm fine. Go. Margaret looked at his shoulder, blood seeping through his gear. Not arterial. He'd live. She pulled Tyler toward the stairwell. Behind them, Brennan engaged. The sound of his weapon firing. Someone shouting. More gunfire. They reached the stairs. Started down. Tyler's legs gave out on the second flight. Margaret caught him but couldn't hold his weight. They went down together. Tumbling, Margaret twisted, using her body to shield Tyler from the concrete steps. They hit the landing. Pain exploded through Margaret's shoulder, her hip, her ribs. She gasped, tried to breathe, couldn't. Tyler was above her, trying to get up. Doc, are you okay? She wasn't. Her ribs were screaming. Something might be broken, but she'd felt worse. I'm fine, keep moving. Footsteps above, someone coming down fast. Margaret forced herself up. Every movement was agony. A figure appeared at the top of the stairs, black gear, raising a weapon. Margaret didn't think. She grabbed Tyler and threw herself against the wall. Bullets chewed through the space where they'd been standing. The shooter descended. Professional. Careful. Margaret's hand found a fire extinguisher mounted on the wall. She ripped it free, aimed, and squeezed the handle. White foam exploded into the stairwell. The shooter stumbled, blinded. Margaret swung the extinguisher like a club, connected with the man's head. He went down hard. She grabbed his weapon, an HK-416, loaded, safety off. Tyler stared at her. Who are you? I am someone who's very tired of being shot at. Can you walk? Tyler nodded. They continued down. First floor, the sound of fighting echoed from multiple directions, Wade's voice over the dropped comms unit. Margaret, if you can hear me, we're falling back to the garage. Rendezvous point Alpha, 3 minutes. Margaret picked up the comms unit. Copy, we're coming. They hit the ground floor. The hallway was a war zone. Bullet holes, scorch marks, blood. 2 Aegis contractors lay dead near the entrance. Margaret and Tyler moved past them. Through a door marked maintenance. Down another set of stairs. The garage was chaos. Wade and his team were pinned down behind the SUVs. At least 8 Aegis contractors were advancing from the entrance ramp. Margaret assessed the situation, counted hostiles, calculated angles. Then she did something she hadn't done in 35 years. She raised the rifle, sighted, breathed, fired. The first shot took a contractor in the shoulder. He dropped. The second shot shattered a concrete pillar, sending fragments into another man's face. He stumbled back, screaming. The third shot missed, but it got their attention. The contractors turned, looking for the new threat. Wade saw his opportunity. His team opened up. Coordinated fire. Professional. Devastating. 3 contractors went down. The others retreated, laying down, suppressing fire. Wade sprinted to Margaret's position. Where the hell did you learn to shoot like that? Same place I learned everything else. We need to go, now. Foster's got the vehicle ready. They moved as a unit. Wade, Margaret, Tyler, and the rest of Bravo team. Loading into the last functional SUV, Foster hit the gas before the doors were fully closed. They tore out of the garage tires screaming. Bullets pinged off the armored sides. In the rearview mirror, the abandoned VA hospital burned. Orange flames against the black Chicago skyline. Margaret held Tyler against her, checking his pulse, his breathing. He was alive. Barely, but alive. Wade was on the phone. Colonel Brooks, we're compromised. Safe house is burned. We have the package and the evidence, but we need extraction. Where do you want us? A pause. Wade's face went pale. Say again. Another pause. Wade closed his eyes. Understood. We're on our way. He ended the call, looked at Margaret. Colonel Brooks was ambushed leaving the Pentagon 30 minutes ago. 2 gunshot wounds to the chest. He's at Walter Reed. Critical condition. Tyler made a sound. Pain. Terror. Grief. My dad. He's alive, Tyler, but he needs surgery. Tyler looked at Margaret. Can you save him? Margaret thought about her age, her exhaustion, the fact that she was 54 years old and had just been shot at by a dozen professional killers. Then she thought about a young ranger with a severed artery looking up at her in a tent asking if he was going to die. Yes, she said, I can save him. Wade nodded. Then that's where we're going, Walter Reed, right into the lion's den. Foster punched it. The SUV roared through the streets of Chicago. Behind them, Aegis mobilized. And in an office downtown, a phone rang. A man with gray hair and cold eyes answered. Status. They escaped, but we know where they're going. Good. Walter Reed has more cameras, more security, more places to hide a body. What about the woman Margaret Thorne? What about her? She killed 4 of our contractors. She's trained, dangerous. The man laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. She's a 54-year-old nurse. Send more men. End this. Yes, sir, Mr. Caldwell. The line went dead. Victor Caldwell looked out his window at the city, at the lights, at the empire he'd built on stolen money and dead witnesses. Margaret Thorne was a problem, but all problems had solutions. He made another call. Send the cleaners to Walter Reed, all of them. I don't care if it's a military hospital. I don't care if it's guarded. I want Thorne Bishop and that drive, and I want them tonight. Yes, sir. How many cleaners? All of them. Caldwell hung up. Outside, Chicago slept. Inside Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, Colonel William Brooks lay dying. And Margaret Thorne drove through the night carrying the weight of 8.7 billion reasons to die. But she'd carried heavier burdens before, and she was still standing. Walter Reed National Military Medical Center rose against the pre-dawn sky like a fortress. 7 stories of concrete and glass. Security checkpoints at every entrance. Armed guards. Cameras. The kind of place where secrets went to be protected or buried. The SUV pulled into the emergency bay at 4:37 in the morning. Foster killed the engine. For a moment, nobody moved. Wade broke the silence. This is insane. You know that, right? Margaret was checking Tyler's vitals. Pulse weak but steady. Breathing shallow but adequate. He'd lost consciousness somewhere around Wisconsin Avenue. Insane would be letting Colonel Brooks die because we're afraid. Aegis owns half the security contractors in this city. The moment we walk through those doors, they'll know. Then we don't walk, we run. Wade looked at her, at this gray-haired woman who should have been home sleeping, who should have been anywhere but here. You're really going to operate on him. Unless you've got a surgeon hidden in your tactical vest. Doc, you haven't done field surgery in 35 years. Muscle memory's a hell of a thing, Wade. Either we try or Brooks dies. Your call. It wasn't really a call. They both knew it. Wade keyed his comms. Bravo team, we're going in. Foster, stay with the vehicle. Keep it running. Harding Mitchell, you're on point. Brennan, you're with me and the doc. Walsh, rear guard. We move fast, we move quiet, and we do not engage unless absolutely necessary. Copy that. They dismounted, Tyler between Margaret and Brennan barely conscious. Wade led the way through the automatic doors. The night shift receptionist looked up, saw 5 operators in tactical gear carrying weapons, saw Margaret covered in dust and blood, saw Tyler pale as death. She reached for the phone. Wade was faster. He placed his military ID on the desk. The credentials were impressive. JSOC, level 5 clearance. Colonel Jackson Wade, we're bringing in a critical patient under military protection. I need ICU access, and I need it now. The receptionist's hand hovered over the phone. Sir, I need to verify with security. No time. Where's Colonel William Brooks? He was brought in approximately 2 hours ago. Gunshot wounds. I can't give out patient information. Wade leaned in. His voice dropped to something barely above a whisper. Something dangerous. That man is dying. This woman is going to save him. You can help us, or you can explain to his widow why you didn't. Choose fast. The receptionist looked at Margaret, at the determination in her eyes, at the blood on her hands. She made a choice. ICU, 4th floor, room 412. He's scheduled for surgery in 30 minutes, but they're waiting for the attending. They're not waiting anymore. Wade moved. The team followed. Margaret kept pace, one hand supporting Tyler, the other clutching her medical bag. They hit the elevators. Harding jammed the call button. The wait felt eternal. Mitchell's voice crackled over comms. We've got eyes on us. Security cameras, at least 6. Let them watch, Wade said. We're not hiding. The elevator arrived. They piled in. Wade hit the button for the 4th floor. The doors closed. In the security office, 2 guards watched the monitors. One reached for his radio. The other stopped him. Wait, Look at their credentials. That's JSOC. We don't mess with JSOC. But the weapons, the blood, they're special operations. When don't they have weapons and blood? Should we call it in? The first guard thought about it, about paperwork, about explaining why he'd interfered with a classified military operation. No, let command handle it. They went back to their coffee. The elevator climbed. Margaret felt every second like a weight. Tyler stirred against her shoulder. Doc, I'm here. Is my dad really dying? Margaret didn't lie to patients, ever. He's badly hurt, but I'm going to do everything I can. What if it's not enough? Then it's not enough, but I haven't failed yet and I'm not starting with your father. The elevator dinged, fourth floor. The doors opened onto controlled chaos, nurses moving with purpose, monitors beeping, the smell of antiseptic and urgency. Wade didn't ask for directions. He moved like he owned the place. The team followed. Room 412 was at the end of the hall. Two MPs stood outside. They saw Wade coming and moved to intercept. Sir, this is a restricted area. Wade showed his credentials again. Colonel Wade JSOC. I'm here for Colonel Brooks. Sir, he's not cleared for visitors. I'm not visiting. She's operating. The MPs looked at Margaret, at this 54-year-old woman in scrubs that looked like they'd been through a war. Ma'am, with all respect, the surgical team is already prepping. Margaret pushed past them, opened the door. The room was dim. Banks of monitors cast everything in blue-green light. Colonel William Brooks lay on the bed, pale as printer paper. 2 gunshot wounds, both chest, left side, near the heart. A doctor stood at the bedside, young, competent-looking. He turned when Margaret entered. Who the hell are you? The person who's going to save his life. I'm Dr. Andrew Winters. This is my patient, and you need to leave before I call security. Margaret moved to the bedside, started assessing, heart rate low, blood pressure critical, oxygen saturation dropping. He's got a hemothorax on the left side, at least 2 liters of blood in the pleural cavity. 1 bullet nicked the subclavian artery, the others lodged near the apex of the heart. If you move him to surgery, he'll code in transport. Winters stared at her. How do you know that? Because I can hear it. The chest sounds are muffled on the left. His neck veins are distended. He's in compensated shock, but he won't be for long. I've already assessed him. We're taking him to the OR in 10 minutes. He doesn't have 10 minutes. And what do you suggest that I let a random nurse perform thoracic surgery in an ICU room? Margaret met his eyes. I suggest you decide if your ego is worth more than his life. Winters opened his mouth, closed it, looked at Wade. Who is she? Someone who's saved more lives than you've seen. A nurse appeared in the doorway. Dr. Winters, the OR is ready. We need to move him. Brooks made a sound, barely a whisper. No. Everyone turned. Brooks's eyes were open, just barely, focused on Margaret with terrible intensity. No OR. Her. I want her. Colonel Brooks, you need proper surgery. I know what I need. Each word was agony. White Angel, that's what they called you, in the desert. I read the reports. You held 11 Rangers alive for 8 hours. Performed surgery with a flashlight. Margaret moved closer. Colonel, don't try to talk. Tyler, is he alive? He's alive. He's here. The evidence, safe. Brooks closed his eyes. Relief flickered across his face. Then finish this. Operate. Save me. So I can save them. Winters looked at Brooks, at Margaret, at the impossible situation. If I let you do this and he dies, my career is over. If you don't let me do this, he dies anyway. At least this way you tried. Winters was silent for a long moment. Then he stepped back. What do you need? Margaret felt something unlock in her chest, the weight of 35 years lifting. Surgical kit, chest tube, blood, at least 6 units O positive, anesthesia, and someone who can keep him under without killing him. I can do that, Winters said quietly. Then scrub in. This is going to get messy. The next 20 minutes were controlled chaos. Margaret directed like a general commanding troops. Nurses brought supplies. Winters prepped anesthesia. Wade and his team secured the room. Tyler was placed in a corner chair, conscious now, watching with wide eyes. Margaret scrubbed at the room's small sink. 35 years since she'd done this. 35 years since she'd held a scalpel with purpose. Her hands didn't shake. Winters appeared beside her. I looked you up while they were getting supplies. Margaret Thorne, combat medic, Operation Desert Storm. They teach your mission at Fort Sam Houston. Operation Gold Star. Ancient history. You saved 11 men who should have died. I did my job. Your job was to stabilize and evacuate. Instead, you performed 4 field surgeries, held off an enemy assault, and kept everyone alive for 8 hours under fire. Margaret dried her hands. Dr. Winters, if you're trying to inspire confidence, you're doing a terrible job. I'm trying to understand why a legend is working night shifts stocking supplies at Mercy General. Because legends are just people who survived when they shouldn't have. And eventually everyone forgets. She turned to face the operating field. Brooks was intubated now. Monitors stabilized. Winters had done good work. Margaret pulled on surgical gloves. They felt foreign and familiar all at once. Let's begin. The first incision was the hardest. The moment the scalpel touched skin, every doubt crystallized. What if she'd forgotten? What if 35 years was too long? What if she killed this man because her ego said she could still do this? Then the blood welled up and muscle memory took over. Her hands moved. Precise, confident. 35 years dissolved like they'd never happened. Retractor. Winters provided it. Margaret opened the chest cavity. Blood everywhere. She suctioned, found the source. There, subclavian artery. Small nick. I need to clamp it. She worked. Winters watched in something like awe. Your technique. It's outdated but effective. I learned intense with limited equipment. You use what works. She clamped the artery. The bleeding slowed, not stopped but controlled. Now the bullet, it's lodged in the pericardium. If I'm not careful, I'll puncture the heart. How do you know where it is? We didn't have time for imaging. I can feel it. Margaret's fingers moved through tissue with delicate precision, feeling for foreign objects. For the hardness of metal and soft flesh, there. Got it. She extracted the bullet, dropped it in a metal tray with a clink. One down, now the hard part. That wasn't the hard part. The second bullet is deeper, near the apex of the heart. If I pull wrong, he bleeds out in seconds. Margaret breathed, centered herself, remembered a tent in the desert, a young man dying, her hands covered in blood, the absolute certainty that failure was not an option. She reached in, the monitor screamed. Brooks's blood pressure plummeted, heart rate spiking. He's crashing, Winters said. We need to stop. We're almost there. His heart can't take the manipulation. His heart will take whatever I tell it to take. Margaret's fingers found the bullet, lodged against the heart wall. She couldn't just pull, had to ease it out, millimeter by millimeter. The monitors were chaos, alarms overlapping. Margaret, his pressure is 40/20. He's dying. Not yet, he's not. She worked, every movement precise, every adjustment calculated. The bullet shifted, came free. Margaret pulled it out. The monitors stabilized. Not good, but better. Suction. I need to see the damage. Winters suctioned. Margaret assessed. Small laceration on the heart wall. Not deep. I can repair it. She sutured. Tiny stitches. Perfect placement. The kind of work that took years to learn and decades to master. 20 minutes later, she tied off the last stitch. Done. She stepped back, stripped off her gloves. Brooks's monitors showed stable vitals. Not great, but alive. Winters looked at her with undisguised amazement. That was extraordinary. That was necessary. You just performed open chest surgery in an ICU room with minimal equipment. Do you understand how insane that is? I understand that he's breathing and you're not filling out death certificates. Wade appeared at the door. Doc, we need to move. Mitchell just picked up Aegis chatter. They're mobilizing. At least 20 contractors. ETA 10 minutes. Margaret looked at Brooks, at Tyler, at the impossible situation. He can't be moved. The surgery was traumatic. Moving him risks everything. Then we don't move him. We hold here. Wade, there's 20 of them, 6 of you. 7. Margaret turned, saw the look in Wade's eyes. No, I'm not a soldier. You just saved a general's life with a scalpel and prayer. That's more badass than any firefight. I'm a medic, and medics fight. You know that better than anyone. Margaret thought about the rifle she'd fired in the VA hospital, about the contractor she'd hit with a fire extinguisher, about the fact that she was 54 years old and exhausted and terrified and absolutely unwilling to let anyone else die. What's the plan? Wade smiled. It was not a nice smile. We turn this hospital into a fortress, and we remind Aegis why you don't mess with the old guard. He made a call. Raymond, it's Wade. I need the team. All of them. Walter Reed, right now. A pause. I know it's dangerous. That's why I'm calling. Another pause. Then Wade's smile widened. I knew you'd say yes. Fourth floor ICU. Bring everything you've got. He hung up. Who's Raymond? Margaret asked. Raymond Cooper, 68 years old, Marine Corps, retired 15 years ago, been waiting for someone to need him again. You're bringing retirees to a gunfight. I'm bringing warriors. 20 minutes later, they started arriving. 6 old warriors. Average age 67, combined combat experience 140 years. Raymond Cooper, 68, Marine Corps gray beard and eyes that had seen Fallujah. Thomas Fitzgerald, 65 Ranger tab and an IED limp. Patrick O'Brien, 63, airborne still fit enough to run. Henry Davidson, 67 combat engineer with a duffel of homemade explosives. Walter Knox, 69 artillery calculating angles in his head. And James McAllister, 71 wheelchair-bound infantry with a shotgun and no apologies. Wade looked at them, at his team, at Margaret. Gentlemen, in approximately 5 minutes, 20 Aegis contractors are going to assault this hospital. Their goal is to kill Colonel Brooks, Private Bishop, and anyone protecting them. Our goal is to make sure that doesn't happen. 20 contractors, James said from his wheelchair. That's not a fight, that's target practice. They're young, well-trained, well-armed. We're old, better trained, and we've got nothing to lose. Raymond checked his rifle, an old M4 that looked like it had been through multiple deployments. What's the optimum? Wade pulled out a tablet, showed a floor plan of the ICU. We're here, 4th floor, 2 stairwells, east and west, 1 elevator. Aegis will come from all 3 simultaneously. We need to control the choke points. He pointed to the stairwell entrances in the elevator. Classic defensive position, Thomas said. We've done this before. Not in 30 years you haven't. Muscle memory, Colonel, it doesn't fade. Wade divided them into positions. Raymond and Thomas at the east stairwell, Patrick and Henry at the west, Walter at the elevator, James in the center hallway with overlapping fields of fire. Margaret stayed in the ICU room with Brooks and Tyler. Wade and his team provided mobile support. Rules of engagement, Raymond asked. They're here to kill. We respond in kind. But these are civilians, hospital staff, patients. We do not put them at risk. Copy that. They dispersed, taking positions, checking weapons, settling into the calm that comes before violence. Margaret stood in the ICU room, watching them. These old men who should have been home, who should have been retired, who should have been anywhere but here. Tyler watched too. They're going to die for us, he whispered. No, Margaret said. They're going to live for us. There's a difference, us. Wade checked his watch. 3 minutes. The hospital continued around them. Oblivious, night shift nurses making rounds, patients sleeping, the normal rhythm of healing, about to be shattered. Mitchell's voice over comms. I've got eyes on them. 3 vehicles, black vans, parking at the east entrance, 12 visible hostiles. Wait, second group, west entrance, another 8, total 20 confirmed. Here we go, Wade said quietly. The Aegis contractors entered the building with professional efficiency, not rushing, not announcing themselves, just moving with purpose. Hospital security saw them, saw the weapons, reached for radios. The contractors shot them, suppressed weapons. 2 guards dropped before they could call for help. Civilians screamed, scattered. The contractors ignored them. They had a mission. 4th floor, ICU, Margaret Thorne. They hit the stairwell simultaneously. Raymond heard them coming, counted footsteps. 6 men, heavy boots, tactical gear. He waited. The first contractor reached the 4th floor landing, opened the door. Raymond shot him. Center mass. The man dropped. The second contractor returned fire. Raymond was already moving, using the doorframe for cover. Contact east, he called over comms. Engaging. Thomas was beside him, firing controlled bursts, forcing the contractors back down the stairs. West stairwell, Patrick and Henry faced the same situation. 8 contractors trying to force their way up. Henry had set charges. Improvised explosives made from hospital supplies. Oxygen tanks, cleaning chemicals. The kind of thing you learned in combat engineer school and never forgot. He detonated them when the contractors were halfway up the stairs. The explosion was deafening. Concrete shattered. Men screamed. 3 contractors went down. The others retreated. Contact west. 3 down, 5 retreating. At the elevator, Walter waited. He disconnected the call button, manually operated the controls. When the elevator arrived with 4 contractors inside, he greeted them with a shotgun blast and a smile. "Welcome to Walter Reed. Visiting hours are over." He fired. The contractors dove for cover inside the elevator. Walter hit the emergency stop. Trapped them. Elevator secured. 4 hostiles contained. James in his wheelchair controlled the center hallway. His position gave him overlapping fields of fire on both stairwells and the elevator. When contractors tried to breach through the ceiling, dropping down from maintenance access, James was waiting. He fired with the calm precision of a man who'd spent 50 years learning how to kill efficiently. 2 contractors dropped. The others retreated back into the ceiling. Maintenance access compromised, holding. The battle raged for 20 minutes. Not a firefight, a siege. The contractors trying to break through, the old guard refusing to give ground. In the ICU room, Margaret listened to the violence. Every shot made her flinch. Not from fear, from memory, from knowing what those sounds meant. Tyler was beside her, conscious now, watching his father breathe. "We're going to die here, aren't we?" "No." "How do you know?" "Because I've been in worse situations, and I'm still here." Brooks stirred, his eyes flickered open. "Tyler." "I'm here, Dad." Brooks tried to smile, failed. Too weak. "Proud of you, son. You did the right thing. People are dying because of me. People are dying because of corruption. You're exposing it. That's heroism." Margaret checked his vitals. Stable. Barely. But stable. "Colonel, don't talk. Save your strength." "How long?" "How long what?" "How long can they hold?" Margaret looked at the door, at the sounds of battle beyond. "As long as they need to." Brooks closed his eyes. "White Angel, that's what they called you. You know why? Because I kept people alive. Because you refused to accept death. Not for yourself, not for anyone else. That's not medicine. That's magic. It's stubbornness." "Same thing." Over the comms, Raymond's voice, strained now. "Running low on ammunition. Need resupply." Wade moved, grabbed spare magazines from the tactical vests, ran to the east stairwell. Raymond was bleeding from a shoulder wound. Still firing, still holding. "Here." Wade tossed him magazines. "Thanks. How's the doc?" "Still saving lives." "Good. That's what she does." Wade returned to the ICU. His team was showing where. Brennan's shoulder wound had reopened. Harding had taken a round to his vest. Bruised ribs, but functional. "How much longer?" Margaret asked. "Until we run out of ammunition or they run out of contractors." "That's not a plan." "It's the only plan we have." Mitchell's voice crackled. "Bravo 1, we've got a problem. Someone just called Metro PD. Police are responding. ETA 5 minutes. "That's good, right?" "Not if Aegis has people in Metro PD. They'll walk right into an ambush." Wade cursed. Margaret made a decision. "I'm going down there." "What?" "Someone needs to warn them. I'm the only one who can move freely. I'm a nurse. They'll listen to me." "Doc, you're exhausted." "I'm functional. That's all that matters." She moved before Wade could stop her. Out of the ICU, into the hallway. The scene was surreal. Old men in defensive positions, bodies on the floor, blood, smoke. And in the rooms around them, patients sleeping through it all, sedated and unaware. Margaret ran for the elevator, the one Walter had secured. "I need it." "Doc, it's not safe." "Nothing's safe. Let me through." Walter disabled the trap. The elevator descended. Margaret emerged into the main lobby. Chaos. Civilians huddled behind furniture. Hospital security trying to establish control. And outside, the flash of blue and red lights. Police. A dozen cars. SWAT van. Margaret ran for the entrance. Burst through the doors. "Stop! Don't come in!" The officers drew weapons, pointed them at this blood-covered woman screaming at them. "Ma'am, get down on the ground. Listen to me. There are armed contractors inside. Aegis Defense Corporation. They're here to kill federal witnesses. If you go in there, you'll be walking into a massacre." "Ma'am, on the ground now." "I'm a nurse. My name is Margaret Thorne. I'm trying to save your lives." A figure stepped forward. Older officer, Captain's bars. He looked at Margaret, really looked. "Stand down," he told his officers. "Ma'am, what's your name again?" "Margaret Thorne." The captain's eyes widened. "The White Angel," Margaret blinked. "What?" "I was a medic, Army. They taught us about you, Operation Gold Star. You're a legend. I'm trying to keep you from dying." "How many hostiles inside, Mom?" "At least 20, armed with automatic weapons. They're assaulting the 4th floor ICU. "Why, Mom?" to kill a federal witness and destroy evidence of military corruption. The captain processed this, made a decision. SWAT suit up, we're going in, but we're going in smart. I want sniper teams on the surrounding buildings. Tactical entry through multiple access points. Nobody fires unless fired upon. These are civilians in there. He looked at Margaret. You should stay here. I have patients upstairs. Ma'am. Captain, I didn't survive 35 years of service to hide in a parking lot. Those men up there are protecting my patient. I'm going back. The captain smiled, tired but real. You're as crazy as the stories say. Crazier. She ran back inside. The elevator was death. She took the stairs. East stairwell. The one Raymond and Thomas were holding. The contractors were gone. Retreated. 3 bodies on the stairs. None of them Raymond or Thomas. She reached the 4th floor. Raymond was slumped against the wall, bleeding from multiple wounds, but alive, still holding his rifle. Doc, bad timing for a visit. How bad are you hit? Bad enough, but I'll live unless you're here to tell me otherwise. Margaret assessed quickly. Shoulder wound, leg wound, neither arterial. You'll live, but you're done fighting. Like hell I am. Raymond, you're losing blood. I've lost worse. Margaret pulled bandages from her pocket. Field dressing she'd grabbed before leaving the ICU. She worked fast. Pressure bandages, tourniquets, basic trauma care. There, that'll hold. Thanks, Doc. Don't thank me. Just don't die. I'm tired of people dying. She moved down the hallway, checking each defender, each old warrior who'd come when called. Thomas had a concussion from a flashbang. Patrick had burns on his hands from a grenade. Henry had taken a round to his vest, bruised but functional. Walter was bleeding from a head wound but refused to stop fighting. James in his wheelchair was uninjured and grinning like a madman. Best night I've had in 10 years, he said. Margaret wanted to scream at them. These old men, these fools, these heroes. Instead, she just kept moving, kept treating, kept them alive. Wade found her. Police are here. SWAT's moving in. This is almost over. Almost. Aegis is retreating, but their commander is still in the building. Victor Caldwell, former SEAL. He's not leaving without the evidence. Where is he? Mitchell tracked him. He's heading for the ICU memo. Margaret ran. She reached the ICU room. Tyler was standing, weak but determined, holding a pistol someone had given him. He's coming, Tyler said. The man who burned my operation, who killed my team. He's coming for me. Then we'll stop him. The door opened. Victor Caldwell walked in like he owned the place. 47 years old, fit, dangerous, everything a SEAL should be and nothing they should become. He saw Margaret, saw Tyler, saw Brooks unconscious on the bed. He smiled. The white angel. In person. This is an honor. Get out. I don't think so. You have something that belongs to me. Evidence, I want it back. It's going to the FBI tonight. The FBI, half of them are on my payroll. Then the press, the Senate, anyone who'll listen. Caldwell raised his weapon. A pistol. Small. Efficient. Give me the drive and I'll make this quick. Refuse and everyone in this room dies slowly. Margaret stepped between him and Tyler, between him and Brooks. You'll have to go through me. You're a 54-year-old nurse. What are you going to do? More than you think. Caldwell aimed. Margaret moved. Not fast, not young, but smart. She grabbed the IV stand, swung it, connected with Caldwell's gun hand. The weapon discharged. The bullet went wide. Caldwell recovered fast, turned the gun back toward her. Tyler fired. 3 shots, 2 hit. Caldwell stumbled. Not dead. Wearing armor. He returned fire. Tyler went down. Margaret didn't think. She charged. 54 years old and exhausted and absolutely done with people shooting her patients. She hit Caldwell like a linebacker. They went down together. Grappling, he was stronger, younger. Trained, she was angrier. She went for his eyes, his throat, his groin, fighting dirty, fighting to survive. Caldwell threw her off. She hit the wall. Pain exploded through her back. He stood, aimed. You should have stayed retired, old woman. I was never retired. I was waiting. Wade burst through the door, weapon up. Caldwell turned, fired. Wade dropped, hit in the leg. Caldwell turned back to Margaret. Any last words? Margaret looked at him. At this man who'd sold his honor for money, who'd killed soldiers, who'd corrupted everything the uniform stood for. Yes, she said, I'm not the one you should worry about. Behind Caldwell, Brooks sat up in bed, weak, barely conscious. but holding Wade's dropped pistol. He fired once. The bullet hit Caldwell in the back. No armor there. Caldwell went down. Margaret moved immediately, kicked his weapon away, checked his pulse. He's alive. Barely. She turned to the others. Tyler was hit, but alive. Shoulder wound, clean through. Wade's leg was bleeding but manageable. Brooks had collapsed back into bed, exhausted but breathing. Everyone stay down. I'll handle this. She worked, moving between patients, treating wounds, stopping bleeding, doing what she'd always done. The police arrived minutes later. SWAT clearing rooms, paramedics flooding in. Margaret stood in the middle of the carnage, blood on her hands, exhausted, triumphant. A young paramedic approached. "Ma'am, are you injured?" "No." "The blood, not mine." "Are you a doctor?" "A nurse, and right now I'm tired, so unless someone's dying, leave me alone." The paramedic backed away. Margaret walked to the window, looked out at the city. Dawn was breaking, pink and gold across the skyline. She'd survived, again. 3 months later, Margaret stood in front of a classroom. Not a hospital, not a war zone. A training center in Nevada. 40 students, young, eager, military and civilian. Combat medicine. Margaret wrote on the whiteboard, "Lesson 1 protocols or guidelines. Lives are absolute." She turned to face them. "Most of you will never see combat. Most of you will work in clean hospitals with every resource imaginable. But someday you'll face a moment when everything goes wrong. When the patient is dying and the book doesn't have answers. That's when you'll remember this class." A young man raised his hand. "Ma'am, is it true you performed surgery in a war zone?" "Multiple times." "Were you scared?" Margaret thought about it. About 22-year-old, her in a tent. About 54-year-old, her in an ICU every single time. Fear means you understand what you're risking, but you can't let fear make decisions. Training makes decisions. What if we freeze? Then someone dies, so you don't freeze. You breathe, you focus. You do what needs to be done. Another student, female, 20-something. "How do you do that?" "Stay calm when everything's chaos," Margaret smiled. "You remember why you're here. Not for glory, not for recognition. You're here because someone somewhere is going to need you to refuse to let them die. That's your job. That's your calling. Everything else is just noise." Well, and after class, Wade was waiting outside. "How's it feel teaching instead of doing different? Good. Strange." Tyler called. He's testifying next week. 18 Aegis executives indicted, 3 senators. The whole network is collapsing. Good. Brooks is back at the Pentagon, full recovery. They promoted him, general now. He earned it. The old guard wants to know when you're coming to the next meeting. Margaret looked at him. "Meeting, every Thursday, we gather, talk. Remember, you should come." "I'm not a veteran." "Doc, you're more veteran than half the people there. You bled for us, fought for us, refused to let us die. That makes you one of us." Margaret felt something warm in her chest, something she hadn't felt in years. Belonging. "I'll think about it. That's all I ask." Wade left. Margaret walked through the training center. On the wall hung a photo, black and white, 35 years old, 12 people in desert camouflage, standing in front of a shot-up Humvee, young, determined, half of them dead now. A plaque beneath it read, "Operation Gold Star, 1991, 11 lives saved under fire, led by specialist Margaret Thorne, the White Angel." Her phone buzzed. "Nathan, home next month, Ma." She smiled. Typed back, "I'll be here, baby, always." Outside, the Nevada sun blazed. Inside, a new generation learned what it meant to refuse to let someone die. Margaret Thorne had been called obsolete, but she was still here, still teaching, still saving lives. And that was enough.